Okay. So are we live now?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I think it looks yours almost click start stream.
Okay.
Okay, we're in.
All right. Okay. I was like, I want to wait and give a couple of people time to log on because I know I told some people.
Mm-mm.
I know I told some people that we probably would start a couple of minutes later, maybe like 3:40.
Okay.
Just to give some people some time to log on. Okay. I was like, I want to wait and give a couple of people time to log on because I know I told some people.
You're gonna have to mute it, Alexis, because it's feedback.
People that we probably would start a couple of minutes later, maybe like 3:40. Okay. Just to give some people some time to log on.
You're gonna have to mute it, Alexis, because it's feedback. The live is a little late. That's why.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Are you guys seeing video on your end?
The live is a little late. That's why.
But it is running though?
It is running, yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is sometimes difficult. Okay. So you're not getting any more feedback though, right?
No, but question, how are they gonna interact?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm asking, can you see it on YouTube?
Hold on, who has their video thing volume on? Someone has their video volume on. It is running, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't even have the link up, so I don't think it's me.
So you're not getting any more feedback though, right?
No, but question, how are they gonna interact?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. So I'm asking, can you see it?
Where is it coming from? Hold on, who has their video thing volume on? Someone has their video.
Everything is mute for me, so I don't know what's going on.
I think it's coming from Alexis because every time Alexis mutes her thing, it stops.
Do you have the link open, Alexis? Is it open on a different computer there? Trevor's?
I just discovered it. It was open on my Safari. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
It's
That was terrible. Okay. I'm so sorry. And thank you to everybody who has tuned in. That's why I wanted to give us a couple of minutes to get set up. As you can see, this is my first time, not necessarily being on a panel, but this is my first time doing this virtually. And yeah, it can be a little daunting with the technical stuff. But I think we got all of that under control. No more extra websites that are open. And without further ado, I want to first introduce myself. My name is Alexis Stanley. I am a recent law graduate from Loyola University of New Orleans, College of Law. And I just had it on my spirit the last couple of days of wanting to share just what it's been like for myself and these lovely ladies as well, of, you know, being in law school and navigating the law school journey as women of color. So this was literally kind of just like a spontaneous spur of the moment thing. I like texted all my girls and was like, listen, I think I want to do this. And they were like on board. So I'm very excited for what they have to share. These are some brilliant and amazing women, and I know that they're going to do phenomenal things. So without further ado, I want to first start with Ruth and allow Ruth to introduce herself to everybody who is tuned in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Blanco. I am also a recent law graduate from the Loyola University of New Orleans College of Law. And I'm originally from the Bay Area. I moved to New Orleans for law school. And so I am really excited to even share my experience moving from state to state for law school. So.
Oh, okay. And so now I'd like to introduce Brianna Nevels.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I just recently graduated from Loyola as well. I'm originally from New Orleans, but I moved to Houston shortly after Katrina, and I attended Spelman College for undergrad. And I'm looking forward to offering you guys the different perspectives of coming from HBCU to PWI, moving from Houston to New Orleans, all of that. So I look forward to answering questions if you have them and just kind of giving y'all some insight.
Okay, thanks, Bree. And now Gabriela Saint-Louis, also known as Gabby.
Hi, I'm Gabriela Saint-Louis. I am also a recent law graduate of Loyola University in New Orleans. I did grow up in New Orleans. However, I attended college in DC at George Washington University, which is what I'm actually preparing to move back to study and prepare for the bar exam. And I look forward to talking to you all.
Okay, and now I'd like to introduce Shanice Smith-Banks.
My name is Shanice. I am also a graduate of Loyola Law School. I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I came here for law school. And after law school, in a couple of months, I'm going to be starting at Proskauer Rose, labor and employment firm.
Okay, and I'd like to introduce Tanisha Manning.
Hey everybody, I'm Tanisha Manning. I did not attend Loyola Law School. I am a graduate of Tulane University Law School, which is like down the street in New Orleans. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. I'm also like Bree, I attended an HBCU, Philander Smith College for undergrad. So I am happy to share my experiences from an HBCU to PWI. I take the bar exam in September, and I plan to practice some type of civil rights, social justice law, or policy work.
Okay, excellent. And so I know that Shanice and Tanisha went into detail about what kind of law that they intend to practice. I just wanted Ruth, Bree, and Gabby to talk about, just to announce what kind of law that you intend to practice. So Ruth, you can go first, and then Bree, and then Gabby.
Sorry, I missed that detail. Yeah, I intend on practicing immigration law, more specifically corporate immigration. But I do plan on doing just all immigration in general.
I plan on going into intellectual property, more focused on copyright and trademark law.
I plan on going to health law. I did receive a certificate in health law at Loyola, mostly compliance, but I'm not really sure how that would look like. I plan to practice in New York. However, after this COVID pandemic, I'm not sure what the practice in health law will look like, but I'm looking forward to seeing what has in store for me.
Okay. So right now, we're all in a really interesting space right now because we've all recently graduated from law school, literally like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Each of us graduated from law school. So we're actually all in the preparing basically for the bar. So we're in the post-law school phase, beginning to start our careers. But this has been like a really interesting time, right? Just as far as with the coronavirus, or excuse me, COVID-19 pandemic happening, and then subsequently with the rise of, unarmed police killings going on. And so there's a lot of like unrest, and there's a lot of uncertainty even for us in our field. So I want to first talk about just the actual process, right? Of, what inspired each of you guys to actually decide that you want to go to law school? Because that's the first thing, is how do you actually, before you actually get to being in law school, what inspired you guys to want to actually become a lawyer? I'd like to start with Tanisha on this question.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the unrest in society, because I was definitely going to bring that up. As y'all see, I have on my Black Lawyers Matter t-shirt. On the flyer, my name, underneath my name is Civil Rights and Social Justice. When I was a little girl, I used to read books a lot, and I used to read books by John Grisham, which was very advanced. But it just put me in the idea of I always wanted to be in a courtroom. As I got older, my reasoning for wanting to go to law school was definitely for my people. I always tell anyone who asks, like, I came to law school for my community. And in undergrad, like, I became more of a social justice advocate, and I recognized the need for Black lawyers to advocate for marginalized groups, Black and Brown people who can't speak for themselves. I tried to run away from going to law school by saying like I was going to get a master's in something else. But overall, I just really think that my presence is needed to litigate and advocate for us. And even if I don't necessarily immediately step into litigation, I know that I need to do policy work, which you don't necessarily have to have a law degree to do. So hopefully that.
Okay. And thank you so much for sharing that. Ruth, what about you? What inspired you to go to law school?
So being a first generation student was, I always had my parents behind my back, making sure like, look, we came to this country, we want you to, live the American dream. And, I had to live by that. Like I had to live by like seeing my parents, work their A off. And, I had to do my part, and my part was get to college. So I did. I graduated from undergrad, and that was it. That was enough, right? I started working at this law firm, and the manager that I had there was the first one who, he started seeing how, how dedicated I was to that type of work, and he started putting it in my head. And prior to him saying that, I would have never envisioned myself, because I don't know, I didn't grow up around a community of a lot of people who had higher education. So for me, that just kind of seemed like, oh, that's like next level stuff. That ain't me. And so it was just that click of somebody telling me like, no, you can do it. And that's what pushed me to actually get to where I am. And, later on, I want to discuss other things that come with it, with the whole, oh, I'm not supposed to be here feeling. But yeah, I mean, it literally took one person to tell me like, no, like you can do this. So
okay,
that's why I made it to law school.
Okay. Bree, what about you? What inspired you to want to go to law school?
So I'm what they refer to as a Katrina baby. So I was like 9 or 10. I think I had just turned 10 around the time Katrina hit. And I just remember watching.
Give a little background for people who are not from New Orleans, what that actually
is. So Basically around that time, just to give a little background, like when Katrina hit, I had only completed my first week of 5th grade. And then after that, my family was just abruptly moved to another place because like the city was just completely underwater. And I just remember watching, you know, what was going on in the news and just feeling so not like I just couldn't do anything. I wasn't helpful. And at the time I was so young, I just immediately thought that going into legal profession was a way that I could eventually help and solve problems. And then as I got older, I started gaining more interest in like music and art and stuff like that. And in high school, I realized that there was actually an area of law that tailored to my interests. And from there, I just started taking the steps necessary to make sure that law school would eventually land in my path. Yeah.
Okay. And Shanice, what about you? What inspired you to go to law school?
A couple of my family members and stuff had run-ins with the law. So that's how I first, was made aware of like the law and lawyers and stuff like that. And then when I was in high school, I had an opportunity to do a law camp. And so it was like, I didn't really know anything about being a lawyer or anything like that, but it gave you the opportunity to learn about what lawyers do and to do exercises and meet attorneys and stuff like that. So I did that and I really liked it. And so the next summer I was invited to do an advanced version of that same camp. So it was still during high school. And I was able to go to Chicago and it was a more advanced version of what that camp was. So you really got to see what the legal profession was about. And it was an opportunity for you to meet all different types of lawyers. So I did that. And then I had decided that's what I wanted to do. And then when I was in college, I really started questioning whether or not I wanted to actually do that. And I was a sport management minor. So I wanted to see where I could fit in like doing sports as well. And so I decided, I should go to law school. And that's a part of the reason why I'm trying to do labor and employment, because I still do want to get into sports like as in-house counsel eventually.
Okay. And Gabby, lastly, what about you? What inspired you to go to law school?
So I never wanted to be a lawyer. I think it was probably because my dad was a lawyer and I did not. I wanted to be my own person, take my own path. So I was actually interested in psychology. And during my sophomore in college, I was diagnosed with a disease and I got interested in public health because I had to navigate through the healthcare system by myself. And I was, even as an educated person from an educated family, I had no idea what I was doing. And just having to navigate through doctors and being able to advocate for myself, what treatments I wanted, what prescriptions I wanted, and having to do my own research and advocate to the doctors on my behalf of what I think my treatment should be. And my father did not do anything. He just said, this is your health, you have to take care of it. And so I began to see how difficult it was for me as an educated person to advocate for my own health. And I figured that the average person doesn't have that. I mean, if it's hard for me, I can't imagine how hard it is for the rest of the population to know what questions to ask their doctors, how to fight for their own health. And so I got into public health and I minored in it in college. And I still didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be on the ground, helping people, in some social work aspect. But then the more I began to learn about it, after I interned at the American Public Health Association, the issues that I saw, I realized could only be addressed at the legal level. And I would have a more impact by going to law school and trying to help people advocate for themselves and their health at the law and policy level. So I came to law school.
Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that everybody on this panel, with the exception of one person, is a first generation law student and soon to be lawyer. And the only person who's not is Gabby, is because her father is a lawyer, but he was a first generation lawyer. He's a first generation lawyer. So I think it's interesting just because, most of us, our introduction to the legal field was something to do with feeling hopeless in some aspect, in terms of not being able to have certain issues that were meaningful to us, not being able to be addressed, right? And so as first generation law students, or first generation soon to be lawyers, how did you go about, and anybody can answer this question, how did you, once you made that decision that you wanted to go to law school, how did you go about getting information to help you on that journey towards deciding how to apply, where to apply, the process of applying? Did anybody use any outside resources? Did people talk to other people? What did you do? Because we don't have lawyers in our family traditionally. So what was your mode of doing your research to get to actual law school?
I can answer. For me, I am thankful that I was working at a law firm. So while being at that law firm, there were a lot of paralegals that were in transition of going to law school. And so I was able to actually, communicate with them, and they were able to give me a few pointers, a few tips, and, material for the LSAT, stuff like that. So I definitely think that reaching out to others who have done it and have been there, even if it's through Instagram, like now I'm really happy. This is why I had taken a pause from social media for bar prep, but I felt like I had to come back for this because it's so important, because there's so many people out there that maybe don't have that benefit that I had of working at a firm. But we have Instagram now where you can follow somebody and ask them questions, and I think that it ends up being beneficial.
So for me, I wanted to be a lawyer for such a long time, and my mom is that type of parent that just always made sure that I was put in situations that kind of pushed me further or closer toward my goals. And interesting enough, I used to volunteer a lot with the company that my mother works for. And they used to always print up newsletters of what the children of the employees were doing. And my mom used to volunteer for something called an MS 150. It's basically like a cycle from Houston to Austin. And one of the lawyers that worked for my mom's company, she saw my write-up in the newsletter, and she saw that I was interested in going into law school. And from there, she kind of just took me under her wing, and she kind of introduced me to people that were the catalyst of me getting internships in firms in Houston while I was in college. And then from there, I would use those networks to help me apply to law school, figure out that application process, what was necessary, letters of recommendation, and stuff like that.
I'll answer it real quick because I Googled, and I think that's just a real thing for a lot of us. I literally Googled every question I could think of, and I'm very detailed and organized. So I would write all of these lists. Okay, this is what an application consists of. Then this is how much it costs, the different fees. I didn't really, looking back on it now, I think I probably had a few people that I could have used as resources, but nobody in my family knew. So I literally just Googled everything. I read so much. So now these ladies, we're all definitely a resource. And there are group meetings. I'm still in a group meeting that's called Future Black Lawyers and Judges. And now I'm a graduate now. There are blogs. I write blog posts. It's just so much information. So, but I know it's some people out there who don't have access to any of that. So just Google, and Google will give you all the answers.
And I would add really quick that I decided last minute. So the only applications I was able to do were rolling schools. And my school, I went to Syracuse University, but I feel like a lot of schools will have resources at the school. So I had a counselor, I signed up for a pre-law counselor, and they were able to tell me how the process worked and kind of help me a little bit. And then I just kind of told my family that I wanted to go to law school. And then I met I think 2 different lawyers that were just, a friend of a friend or something like that. And they were able to help me a little bit as well.
Okay. So I want to talk about my process with actually deciding to go to law school, because I think, well, I know for certain many of the ladies on the panel don't know that this is actually my second time going to law school. And I wanted to just contrast really quickly the difference between the first time when I attempted to go to law school versus the second time. So my first time, I really it was very last minute, and in the sense of that I didn't do a lot of research. And so I went to like a small law school in Jacksonville, Florida. I didn't really research the area that well, but needless to say, my second time when I actually made the decision that like, okay, I'm going to like really do this for real, I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research because the first time I didn't talk to lawyers. I didn't get any insight as to, you know, what kind of things that I needed to prepare for law school. What kind of recommendation letters you need to have. And so that really helped a lot because there were so many things that I did not know prior to speaking to other attorneys, that once I spoke to them, I went into law school with a completely different mindset. So I think that, and maybe most of y'all will agree with me on this, I think it's important to actually talk to somebody who's in the legal profession. And specifically, I think it's even better to talk to somebody, if you're a person of color, I think it's definitely important to talk to somebody who's a person of color, just because they can give you insight to information that's not generally available to Black and brown people, right? So, the first thing that, like, you know, they all call this your first year of law school, they call it 1L hell. There's like all these different phrases for your first year of law school. What would you guys say was like your biggest hurdle as a woman of color your first year of law school? What would you say was like the thing that really was an obstacle for you to get over? I'm gonna start with Tanisha on this because I felt like she shared some stories with me in the past.
I don't know which one you want me to share. Man, what was one of the most difficult obstacles? 1L year is definitely crazy. Just as a woman of color who also does not have hair, who attends a PWI law school, they automatically assume like
Wait, explain what PWI is, because some people don't necessarily know what that is.
My bad. Oh, PWI is a predominantly white institution. Many of you may know HBCU is historically Black college or university. So attending my institution, I think they automatically assumed I was aggressive. I'm actually very friendly, y'all. And I think, well, I'll say this. My biggest struggle was self-discipline, because that's just something you just have to have. Law school, if you get into law school, they know you can graduate. The hard thing is just like making yourself a self-discipline and time management. Like, you know how to read, you know how to write, you'll get through that. So that's the practical two things. But personally, as a woman of color, and I think we're going to touch on this later, is definitely the imposter syndrome. For a couple of my classes, and I know for you all as well, but it was like only me and maybe 2 other Black students in the class. In law school, you're going to have the gunners. Gunners are considered those who love to think they went to law school already. And it's like, y'all don't know anything. So, because you don't, like, it's based on your professors. So I think what I really struggled with was like, man, they all seem so smart. And I'll never forget, like, I would brief every single case. Briefing a case is once you read it and you like outline what's the case holding, conclusion, what was the rule, shall I say, the analysis, all of that. You'll learn all that. But I used to like, 1L year, I was a super nerd. And I was going, going hard on all of my cases. I'm saying it now because like by 3 year, I was not briefing not one case. But a professor called on me in class to, discuss the case, basically like tell me what this case is about and what was decided. And of course, your girl was prepared because I'm not going to be sitting there looking crazy, although every law student has the experience where you don't know the answer. But that was not my time. It was my time to shine. And I, did the case brief or whatever, discussed the case, all that. And one of my Caucasian male classmates came up to me after class and he was like, wow, like that was really good. And I was like, this is my face. I know. And it was just like I guess because as talkative as I am, I didn't talk that often in class. And I guess they thought, well, this girl doesn't talk a lot, or maybe this is a Black girl who like probably doesn't know what she's doing. She's not going to know what she's talking about in class. But so I think what I really struggled with, and this is probably similar to everyone else, was, just navigating this very white school as a Black woman, knowing that these cases do not apply to anything that I actually want to do in real life. They're written by old white men. So, it's just like all of this is going in your head. But the other thing was self-discipline, time management.
Okay. Ruth, what about you?
Okay, so 1L year was, it was more about getting myself to believe in myself, especially because I didn't do well on the LSAT. So although I was accepted to Loyola for law school, I did have it was like a probation type of thing. And so it came down to like, listen, your first semester, you really got to do well, or you're not going to be able to stay at the school. So it really just came down to, putting yourself in there, figuring out what is going to keep you there. So yeah, I think a lot of the stresses that came from my 1L year was I wasn't really believing in myself, but at the same time, who else was going to believe in me? So I went to our school offered academic success, and I was in there a few times a week. And it just came down to like, how bad do you really want it? And sometimes you may be in these type of situations. Like, for example, I mean, I don't think I've ever really told that many people that I had probation my first semester of law school. But I mean, I look at myself now and I'm like, I literally, last semester before this spring semester, I got 2 asterisks. When the asterisk in the class is basically you get the highest grade in class. So one, the LSAT, if you don't score, too high on the LSAT, don't worry about it. It's not going to dictate how you do in law school. And 2, just keep pushing. Like that's all you really have.
That's really good advice. And I think that's important because so many times we think that one of the things that I've learned from being in law school is like they love to put us in boxes, right? Or this is the box you're in. You're in the top 10% box. So this is the kind of treatment you get. You're in the bottom 25% box. This is the kind of treatment you get. You're in the probation box. You're in the accommodations box, right? And so based on whatever box the law school is trying to put you in, determines, unfortunately, oftentimes what kind of support you get. So I think it's important to highlight that, oftentimes we feel like these boxes define us when in reality, they really don't, right? And so with that, I want to talk about OCI and summer jobs. And I think this is important because I think that, when you go to law school, let me first just break down. So when you go to law school and you finish your first year of school, they have a process called on-campus interviews, or rather when you finish your first semester of law school. Your first semester of law school generally sends out like the indicator to law school administrators, like what kind of student you are, If you're getting all A's and B's, you're gonna generally get a lot of opportunity for work. And usually that comes in the form of a program called OCI. And basically this is when law firms from national law firms and then local law firms come to your law school campus and they interview students for summer associate positions. These are highly, highly, highly coveted for the fact that they pay their summer associates generally on the same pay scale that they pay first year associates right out of law school. So if a first year associate is getting paid $150,000 for the year, the summer associate is making what the first year associate makes for that month. So that means that a summer associate can make anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000 for the summer. So as you can imagine, everybody wants to get an OCI interview. I want to kind of talk to you guys about that because I know some of us went through OCI. Some of us did not get one OCI interview. That would be me, even though I thought I had really good grades. I could not believe it. But I also want to talk about, in lieu of not getting OCI opportunities, what did you do to still figure out a way to, get summer employment opportunities for yourself? I'm going to start with Shanice.
Okay, so I did OCIs after the first year and after the second year. And the one after the second year was the one was Proskauer, where I'm going to be working after this. But for the first year, I got several interviews, but did not get any offers. And I immediately after I figured out what I was going to do, I realized exactly what I did wrong. So during those interviews, I was so nervous and thought that they were going to be asking me these difficult interview questions that were about how smart I was or something like that. And really what the firms are looking for is somebody who they like to be around because they already know that you have the skill to be there. So what happened to me my first year was I did that. I did OCIs, didn't get anything, but I did have a good rank. So I was odd person out pretty much because I had no job. So it was, I knew I wanted to work for a firm, and there was an event in April that they invited the BALSA, the Black Law Student Associations to, and it was for a firm called King and Jergens. And so I went to that event. My mentor, Bianca, who was the president of BALSA that year, had pushed me to go there because I was freaking out that I didn't have a job. And I went there and all my nerves went out the door because I needed a job really bad. So I was talking to everyone. I was talking myself up because I was going to be the next president of BALSA. I was dropping anything good that I have done. I was trying to tell everyone. And they had invited me to lunch. So I was like, okay, maybe for next year, I'll have something lined up. And they surprised me and gave me an offer to work there in 2 weeks. So
it was it's important to point out that this was in May, right?
Mm-hmm. It was 2 weeks before the actual program was going to start. And they had already picked the people that were going to be working there a summer before they had met me. But I had just try to charm them. And then I actually got a job that summer. But when it comes to this past summer that I worked, that was just a regular OCI. I did probably 3 or 4, and I really clicked with that firm. And so I had gotten callbacks for probably 2 of them. And when I went and met with everyone, we just clicked. And that's the type of firm that I would encourage people to go to, is the one you click with and you feel the most comfortable. And yeah, that's my point.
Okay, I want to talk to Gabby about that because you also did OCI as well.
I did OCI first year and second year. First year, I got a few interviews, but I did not get any positions. So I applied to Gillis Long, which was, I one thing I will say is that I definitely ignored the OCI, they post and say they want the top 10%, they want the top 20%. And so I would just say, I'm not top 10, but you're going to look at my resume anyway because I'm qualified. And I'm like, because the thing I learned is that just because they're asking for top 10% does not mean they're going to get all top 10% people that apply. So if only top 35 or 30% people apply, they're going to, you might get an interview. So that was kind of like an ego booster. Not ego booster, but I was very disappointed. I didn't get any offers. And thankfully, we had Gillis Law and Poverty, which is an internship where you get a stipend to work for a certain organization. And I'm glad I did that because it was in the field of health law that I wanted to do. Did not pay very well, but it was great experience. And I definitely do encourage people to do that, but definitely think of other ways that you can supplement that income because you will be struggling, but it's a great experience. And second year, I applied to maybe 1 or 2 OCIs. There weren't that many that I didn't really have as much confidence as I did my first year. So I did get like 1 or 2 interviews, didn't get any offers. And I was like Shanice was first year. It was May and I did not have any jobs. I was crying to my dad. I was crying to the career counselors. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do this summer. And then I submitted my resume to a resume collection through an event through Balsa, which Shanice explained what that was. And by a miracle, a judge found my resume and wanted me to work for them. So I do stress you do have to go to these events because if you don't get a summer job or any job through the traditional route of applying, interview, then you do have to kind of work the party and, introduce yourself to people, talk, go to events, submit your resumes to people, get your name out there because I was not expecting that judge to just grab my resume and said, oh, I want to hire her. So OCI is one route, but if you don't get it, don't be discouraged because there are so many other ways that you can get your dream summer job.
And I think I'm glad you touched on your position with Judge Lede, just because I think that so many people feel like your opportunity to work somewhere amazing comes from just OCI. And oftentimes, if I'm being frank, that's not going to always be the case, especially for women and then women of color. Like that's not going to always be the scenario for us, right? And so, it's super important, especially when it comes to getting summer employment while in law school. It's super important to become connected with legal professionals from your background who can introduce you to getting various opportunities. Gabby was one of the ones who got a very coveted judicial clerkship with is she at the Fourth Circuit?
Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. Yes. And I do have to say, going back to what I remember, I think it was Tanisha was saying about her Caucasian classmate who came up to her afterwards. So at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, I was one of maybe 2 Black students there. And there were several students that came up to me that we all know. And, one of them, their dad, their families, judge, stuff like that. And so they came up to me and said, oh, what are you doing here? I said, I'm interning for Judge Lede at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. What are you doing here? And it's like that kind of,
Put some respect on her name.
Exactly. It's like, so they're just all surprised. Oh, Gabby, you're here. Oh, you work here. You work. I'm like, yes, I do. And it's like that thing where they assume that these types of positions are for certain groups of people. And Judge Lede actually noticed that. And when she told me, she said every year she tries to get our dean to refer students to her so that she can hire them for the summer. And she told me she never sends her any people of color. And she knows that there are so many talented people of color at our school. And so she wanted to change that in the court system. And so she went through Balsa and she said, I'm going to find some people in this group that are smart. And so that's what she did. And she said that she was trying to get more women and more women of color to be in the court system. So that I definitely do have to praise her for that, for trying to make a difference and not being part of the problem, but trying to address it and do something about it.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that. A really good segue from that is let's talk about student organizations, right? And so, and I say student organizations, but I really mean larger national organizations that are linked.
Alexis, before we move forward, I just wanted to add something to that
that
last conversation. Sorry. I didn't do OCI. I knew that I was going to be working with the law firm that I initially was working with, but I just wanted to touch on same thing, like Gabby was able to work with the judge. I was able to get an externship for the immigration court. And usually, yes, dealing with immigration, obviously there's a lot of brown people there, but if you look at, the government side, it's mostly white people. So getting on that side of, the spectrum was, I guess what I want to say is being a person of color in law school sometimes does open the door for you for certain positions that maybe you would have never seen yourself being, but next thing you know, like here's the offer and you're taking it, and next thing you know, you're sitting in that chair and you're having lunch with the judges, so I just wanted to add that in there, that there's other
and I think that's important, right? Because I think that we're a lot of times, you're, as a person of color, you're used to being on the other end of the stick, the defensive end of the stick. And so you naturally think that like, okay, I'm going in to fight justice or, fight inequality through defense. Whereas oftentimes you don't realize that it probably starts more so, the fight really starts on the other side where you have, and I always talk about this, discretion, right? So if you're at the immigration courts and you're clerking for an immigration law judge there, now you know exactly what the model is and the application is when it comes to dealing with immigration issues. If you become a prosecutor as a person of color, you have unlimited discretion as to whether you're going to prosecute a particular individual or not, right? So I think that that's important to highlight, that you don't have to, only be on one end of the spectrum when it comes to, fighting issues that affect both Black and brown people. So I wanted to talk about.
Sorry, can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Sorry. So I just also wanted to point out that law school and like the job process is a lot about perspective. So I did OCI my second year, and I didn't get any interviews or anything like that. But I will say that the jobs that I did end up doing, like it really built my confidence as a future attorney, because at the end of my first year of law school, like I just had things go on in my life where my first year just didn't end the way that I anticipated to end. But the internship that I worked at the St. Tammany's Public Defender's Office, literally the lawyers there were so helpful in me like becoming a better writer, becoming a very better interviewer when it came to like interviewing clients and things like that. So just because you don't get the job that you sought after or the job that pays the most money doesn't mean that you can't gain valuable insight from those jobs.
That's very, very true. Okay, so and just to add to this piece about summer jobs, mine was, like I said, I didn't get any OCI interviews my first year. I was like, this is crazy, right? But my first summer job after 1L year, I got that merely through going to a Black Law Students Association panel. And I walked up to the panelist, Will Snowden, and at the time he was the supervising attorney at the Orleans Public Defender's Office. And I basically pitched myself to him. He asked me to send him my resume. We had like a 30-minute phone interview, and he was like, "You're hired." And literally the first day I got there, Will was like, "I'm out. I'm actually not going to be here anymore." But his purpose was to hire as many students of color in order to serve as law clerks for the public defender's office that year. And that was actually one of their largest classes for students of color who served as law clerks. And then the next year for me, I said, the hell with OCI, that I'm not doing that at all. And so I took a totally different route and basically started like emailing different people. And I somehow, I don't even know how I found this woman's email. I found my former boss's email for the WNBA Players Association. And I emailed her and told her that, you know, I was interested in sports and wanting to, you know, do labor and employment. And after that, it was history. I had like this fabulous internship. So basically, myself and obviously everyone else on the panel, there's multiple ways, or what do they say? There's multiple ways to skin a cat. And so you should have that same approach when you go into getting a summer job in law school. I wanted to talk about the importance of different organizations for us as not only people of color, but women of color. And specifically, I wanted to talk about how they've been supportive to you during your law school journey, right? Because, you know, you hear about in law school, you hear about law review, you hear about moot court, you hear about student bar association, and a lot of credibility is given to a lot of weight and credibility is given to those organizations. But I also want to talk about the organizations specifically tied to race and why they matter. And I wanted to talk to Ruth in particular because Ruth was one of the ones that actually started the Hispanic Law Student Association at Loyola. And I wanted to just get your insight as to what that process was like and why it was important for you to actually start that organization.
So I mean, I can't take credit for that at all. I mean, the Hispanic Law Student Association at Loyola did exist previously, and it just kind of died down. When I started 1L year, we definitely heavily relied on BALSA, the Black Law Student Association, and they pretty much kept us afloat. And when the professors, it took some professors who saw a lot of the, you know, Hispanic students that could have, you know, taken the initiative to do it, to start putting it in our, you know, in our heads. And so it was a few students that actually got together and we were like, okay, let's get it together. So it was a group of students. So we had an election and we started that my 2L year, the spring semester. And then for the following year, which is going to be my 3L year, that's when we actually established the Hispanic Law Student Association at Loyola. And it was with a lot of support of BALSA. I don't think it would have been possible. And I think that's key. That's key, especially when trying to start an organization like that. I think the biggest thing you really have to take into consideration is that, you know, we're all helping each other out here. And so we definitely, you know, owe a lot to BALSA that with helping us get started. And we held a lot of social events together, which was both, you know, beneficial for both organizations. And then even, you know, the administration at the school had a lot to say in regards to like seeing how united we were and seeing how successful our events were coming out. So, and I also think it's just great for the students to have, you know, these organizations available to them because they provide opportunities that weren't previously there.
Unmute
All right.
yourself.
Okay. Tanisha, what about you?
I guess I could speak on Black Law Students BOSA as well. I mean, there's several organizations. They have like women law groups, other groups. I mean, it's kind of like undergrad. There's so many organizations that you can join. But the ones that was most the one that was most beneficial to me was definitely Black Law Students. I was Black Law Students president my 2L year along with Shanice. I was Black Law Students BOSA president at Tulane. Shanice was BOSA president at Loyola. And thank goodness we were BOSA presidents together. But that Tulane is not an HBCU law school, but I will say they have been very intentional of embracing Black students. My second year of law school, we planned our first Black Law alumni reunion. It was beautiful. It was a weekend of events, of panel discussions. We had a BOSA gala. We had Angela Rye come and speak. And the beauty of it, we had a brunch as well. The beauty of it was our dean, who is white, and his wife, who is also white, was at every single event. I didn't even go to all of the events. He did not miss a beat. And it was over 300 Black lawyers who all had graduated from Tulane, like in our presence. And they're doing like anything, any career path, you name it. And so I think that organization was very beneficial, but it was beneficial because I put into it what I wanted to get out of it. I came to law school into New Orleans intentionally seeking out Black people. I was looking for my community so I can make sure that I was like nourished, fed, and fueled while I was in law school. So when it comes to Black people at Tulane, at Loyola, they'll tell you at Loyola as well, because I'm 1/3 of a student there. I like give my time, my resources, my mind, my outlines, my grades, my transcript, my experiences, my contacts, everything. And I feel like I had Black law students do that to me my 1L year. And then, well, I had a few and I was like, y'all need to do more. Like I came from a Black school, like we did for each other. So that's what I planted those seeds. Our boss like really got off the ground after I was president. Now I know they'll do fine. I'm so proud of the ladies and the men now who are president of BOSA, but it was very beneficial to me. And yeah, I even have like my mentors and stuff. My 1L year job came through BOSA. I did a mock interview. I worked at the same place as Alexis. And I do want to say, for OCIs, y'all, I did not participate, didn't think about it, didn't consider it. I knew it wasn't for me. I knew working at a law firm was not my cup of tea. I don't have time to put on the smile all day and write memos. Like, I just can't do it. I salute Shanice. I salute all of my friends who have wonderful firm jobs now after they take the bar, but I knew it wasn't for me. Not to say that my job search wasn't as competitive. Public Interest has its own job fair. It's like 300 employers in one room interviewing 10-minute slots. So like that's a path to take as well. Lexis, she did that with me 3L year. Mm-hmm. So, it's like different things you can do. But yeah, Boston was very beneficial to me in law school.
Sorry, I also forgot to mention, since you guys added, I wanted to add on my part too. I also became the president of the HALSA organization. So it's, like I said earlier, coming from being a 1L who was on probation to all of a sudden becoming president of a whole organization at the school, that just goes back to what I was saying earlier, that you really don't know the doors that are going to open and what opportunities you're going to take. You literally have no idea where you're going. You're just going on this journey that like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's beautiful. And I congratulate all of everyone here, because I am just like, it gives me goosebumps every time I listen to everything that you guys have done. So just, yeah.
I do wanted to add, going back to what Ruth was saying about, our LSAT and probation, even though I grew up, with a lawyer in the family, my undergrad was not good. I did not do well at all. I think I didn't start getting A's and B's until probably junior year. So it was definitely a struggle for me, and my family, a lot of them did not think that I would amount to anything. and having the pressure added on to why are you doing so poorly, and your parent is such a, doing so well. And so I was very surprised. So coming to law school, I had a lot of pressure on me to make my 1L. And so 1L year was more of a test to myself that I belonged here, even though my entire undergraduate was just, I wish I could just throw it away. But so my first semester, I had to convince myself, my family, that even though, yes, undergraduate, which they love to bring up, was not the best experience for me, but I was going to change it. And so first semester, I really had to grow up a lot, because if you have to be very mature to be in law school, because you have to manage your own time, you have to be disciplined. And so I was surprised at myself because of just how much I struggled through undergraduate college. It took me like 5 years to graduate. So, and going back to what Ruth was saying, and now look at us now, you would never think that we struggled in our LSAT or in our undergraduate.
No, and that's real, because I think that one of the things is like, and we'll delve more deeply into this in a second, the whole imposter syndrome thing. I think that when you look at the law review, moot court, you look at, the Order of the Coif and all of these like really prestigious honors, I think when you're not included in those spaces, it can be, it can definitely create self-doubt. And so just briefly, I want to get a sense of like, what do you guys think in terms of law review, moot court, top 10%? Do you think that, I was going to ask you, Ree, do you think that actually matters? Because, I think that, the way the legal world is set up, when you fill out that application, they're asking, were you a member of law review or journal? Were you a member of moot court or trial ad? Does that stuff matter at the end of the day? Do you feel like it matters?
I personally do not think it matters at all. Like, kudos to all those people that have the opportunity and have made those grades, who have done that. Like, that is so cool. And I will speak on 2 specific instances for me where I was just like, bump this. Like, I just don't care about it anymore. So during my second semester 1L year, some schools do this where you write your big brief and then you do an oral argument on your brief. I ended up having I was in the top 2 of the oralists of my specific class. And I just remember, I'm sorry?
I said that's a very big deal, by the way. For people who don't know, that's a very, very big deal, being considered one of the top oralists in our 1L class.
Yeah, so after getting that information, I thought I was definitely going to, be selected to argue on for moot court after that situation, and I was not. So the following semester, which was the first semester of my 2L year, I received an email from moot court asking that I argue on for the second time. But my GPA at the time was 0.05 off from the GPA that they wanted to select students from. So I talked to some of the students that were on the moot court, and they mentioned to me, you should advocate on your own behalf. You're close enough, you should go about doing it. So I sent an email to the person that was ahead, the admissions or the faculty member, whatever, who was ahead of the moot court, and she just would not make the exception. And what really upset me about it was I wasn't seeking out the opportunity. I wasn't going to subject myself to a situation that I knew wasn't going to benefit me, or I knew they were just going to throw it back in my face. So it was kind of upsetting for them to seek me out and then to turn around and tell me that I actually didn't meet the criteria. So that was just upsetting. And then after that, I really let that affect me for a little bit, of just maybe this whole law school thing isn't for me because I'm not in the top 10%. I'm not getting these other opportunities. But at the end of the day, I just had to shift. I had to shift my perspective and just say, you know what? I've made it this far. At the end of the day, I'm going to graduate with a degree. None of that matters. And the second instance that I want to touch on was I was actually in an OCI interview, and they asked me why haven't you written on for journal? And the first thought in my head was, you interviewed me without seeing it on my resume, so why does it matter now in this interview? So I think a lot of law school is about having tough skin and the constant reminder of like why you're doing this, because law school has a way of making it seem like if you're not doing something, you're not doing it right. And at the end of the day, everybody is going to leave with a law degree. What you choose to do with that law degree after you graduate is really up to you. So yeah.
That was excellent.
I really hate that Brianna went through that. I remember that, and I thought that was real shady. And anyways, because they play those games like that. But I'm gonna preach to y'all real quick. Okay, you do not, and I know this is gonna sound crazy to y'all because I did probably everything in law school except for write for a journal. You do not have to write for a journal. You do not have to be on moot court to be successful. Writing on a journal means like it's a journal that you write article comments for. It shows your like writing skills. Moot court is an oral advocacy team. You might be on a mock trial team. I was on negotiation and mediation, or you may do appellate arguments. Okay, so that's a little backdrop. And when you get to law school, they're gonna push law review. That's the top 10%. That's the honors. You automatically get on law review if you're in the top 10%, meaning you basically have to have all A's. A lot of y'all are going to be used to making all A's in undergrad, give or take a few, you know, like we're all A students. So we were used to getting A's. It is very hard to get an A in law school. It does not mean you are done. So a lot of people of color, because then they grade based on this curve. I'm trying to like sum it up for y'all real quick, but I'm gonna put it into like terms for you. You get these grades back, you don't make all A's, you don't get on law review. So now you're looking at yourself like, man, I'm not as smart, when you're like super smart. Fun fact, I graduated with a 3.26 GPA. Do y'all know my rank was like 170 out of 200 students? Crazy, beautiful GPA. I'm like, whatever. So that's just to like put it into perspective to you. I only made 2 C minuses throughout, 2 C's, 1 C minus. Cried when I got them, but I'm like, you know, looking back on it, it means nothing. Moot court, it's an argue on process. When we say argue on, you basically like have to speak and they have to judge your oral skills in order to get you on a team, but they're only selecting like 5 or 6 members for a team where 100 people argue on for. So the odds are already stacked up against us. You might be the token Black girl like me and get on the team because, oh, we need diversity on the team. Or you may have a student like one of my classmates who, like Brianna, got a call the next year and it's like, oh, we want to add you to the team. I have friends who did not do journal or moot court and they killed it. They have a firm job. My good friend Amanda, she will be working for a firm in Houston. Did not do moot court, did not do a journal. However, there are thousands of things to do in law school. This is not to say not to do anything. If you know your grades are maybe great, but still not compared to your other classmates, I preach this all the time. That resume better be popping and filled with everything else to show that, okay, I'm not doing that, but I'm doing this. And so Brianna's resume is still beautiful. She still did many other things. She held offices with Bossa as well. And she'll be fine. Like she's gonna she's a lawyer. She graduated. So I say all that to say, like, they do matter to an extent. Like I did it. It definitely helped me with like basic practical skills. They actually didn't even ask me about that on my resume. They asked about all the other stuff that I did. It is helpful, especially if you want to work for a firm. They do want to see that you wrote for a journal. And so that's why you have to know, like, what do you want to do as your end goal? I knew I wasn't working at a firm. I could care less about writing for a journal. If you know you kind of want to work for a firm, maybe you should shoot for that. If not, do direct research with a professor and get your writing skills during doing that. So that's my like soapbox. Yeah, they matter, whatever. You'll be fine.
Can I just add something to that really quick?
Go ahead.
So with what I want to do, which is go into intellectual property, like I knew that in the city of New Orleans and even in Houston, where my mom lives and where I live when I'm not here, I know that that's not like a huge area. And I knew that in order to be sought out by those type of attorneys in that type of area of law, that I needed to tailor my schooling to that. So at Loyola, they offer what it's called like a certificate, which is basically like a minor in something. So I got a certificate in my law and tech because I knew that like, hey, the chances of me getting experience from this in an actual job are not that likely. So let me tailor my schooling around gaining information in that area in order to make sure that like when I graduate and I want to apply for these jobs, that they're not just looking at my resume like, you intern here and here, what does that have to do with anything?
And I think that's important because that goes back to the fact that it's very important that you, the parts that you can control, you make the most out of that, right? So it's important that since you can craft and tailor your curriculum based on your interests, that you go ahead and do that. Because the reality is, if we want to keep it all the way 100, race plays a factor when you, whether you make it into, I'm not going to say law review because it's, that's top 10%. And oftentimes that's based on grades. And that's a whole nother conversation of whether that really is anonymous and blind grading, because, that's a whole nother segment. But if we want to talk about moot court and trial ad, oftentimes there's an element of race subjectivity in that, because the reality is that those are types of, that's a selection-based system, and it's based on what your colleagues, basically your colleagues deciding whether or not they believe you're worthy or not to represent the school in a national forum, right? So I think, just going back to what Brianna said, I think it's really important to work on the stuff that you can absolutely tailor and craft and make your law school experience for yourself, obviously outside of the stuff that you can't particularly control. So go ahead.
It is based on subjectivity. They will try that race card. I was a lady who had a seat at the table, Black lady, and they tried that when we were arguing on new members. And I had to call my team out, y'all. I went home and I was like, this is not sitting right in my spirit. And that's probably why they have probably a love-hating relationship with me at Tulane, because I sent them a long message like, let me tell y'all something. Because we end up getting the team that we believe we should have had. But it was like, I see with having a seat at the table, the games they play, like, oh, they're going to put their friend at the top, not because their friend is good, but because that's their friend. So I'm like, I could have added every Black person on this team. I could have voted for every Black person, but I'm trying to be unbiased here. And now y'all want to play these games. So I will say, if you do have a seat at the table, don't be afraid to use it, because that's what we're here for. Like, that is why we are even on this panel. Like, we have a seat at the table now. So now we're trying to put y'all up on game. And that's what I did at that table. And it was like, oh, T, like, do you want to sit down and talk privately about it? No, I said what I said publicly, and we're going to move on with it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to also highlight that aspect of when you do get a seat at the table, what it means you having that seat and the impact of you having that seat on people of color that come after you. Because both myself and Shanice were on trial ad, and Gabby, I'm so sorry, and Gabby, and Shanice was actually on the Journal for Public Interest at Loyola. And so she was a managing editor there, right? Again, she was a managing editor for the Journal of Public Interest. And I think that, and I was a board member for Trial Ad. And one of the things that I was adamant about when it came to selecting people to come to be a part of Trial Ad, I was adamant about making sure that there were several people of color who were selected to be a part of Trial Ad. When it came to selecting a new board for Trial Ad, I'll keep it 100. I was texting these two people that they know that who they are. I was texting them and I was like, I need you to submit your stuff right away, right now, because we need a person of color on the board who's going to always make sure that there is a representative available. Sorry. I'm so sorry. That scared the bejesus out of me. I'm so sorry. I have a little Shih Tzu, and she wants to act like she's like a killer, and she's really not. But yeah, going back on what I said, basically, it's important to use your role responsibly. And Shanice, maybe you can talk about, you know, just your influence on journal and why that was important for you.
Yeah, so I'm a part of the General Public Interest Law, or I was, my bad, that's over. But being on the board was important to me because I don't think there were any Black people on the board before me. But just in general, when you're looking to do something, like what I liked what Tanisha was saying about how you have to think about what you want to do before you're making these decisions, because no, it's not a measure of your success in life at all. But at my firm, when I'm talking to other people at firms and stuff like that, that is something they're thinking about. Oh, did you do a journal? Oh, did you do? And it's not like force yourself to do it, but I'm doing the Journal of Public Interest Law, and I'm writing about like exactly what public interest issue I want to write about or something like that. So I definitely say, like, if that's something that is actually of interest to you, it can help you for sure. Like if you want to do that. But just being on the board, we have, I think, 2 or 3 people of color coming on for next year. And I think that just seeing someone else doing it encourages other people like you to do it. So that's why it's important.
Okay, Ruth, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch upon the other side of students, the type of students that necessarily suck at speaking in public. That was me. And I didn't realize that until we actually went to like our spring semester and we had to do the moot court thing. Oh my God, I went frozen and I just could not speak in front of anybody. So, you know, obviously I was one of the people that was fleeing from like moot court and trial ad and all of that because I was like, I do not want to, I'm scared of that. I decided to do clinic though, and I felt like clinic was such an amazing, it's such an amazing opportunity. And for anybody out there who's kind of forum shopping for their law school right now, I would highly recommend looking for a law school that has a clinic program. It's so beneficial because, you know, like for me, like I said, I would have never known like what does it take to be a lawyer. And so it gives you this opportunity to pretty much be the lawyer. You get a temporary license to practice, but you're under the supervision of a professor. So like, you know, you're getting out there and you're actually doing it. And it's an entire process that ends up being so beneficial overall, because now I have definitely improved in the way that I speak in front of people, which previously, like when I first started law school, I didn't even know, but until I actually got into the front podium and realized that my mind went into a complete blank state because of how nervous I was. You know, you don't have to force yourself to get like into moot court. There's other things, you know, you can take the trial ad class and all of that. But like I said, I feared for it. And I waited for clinic. My school offered an immigration clinic and I was extremely excited to join that. And I gained some of my best lawyering skills from clinic. So I would highly recommend that for anybody looking to get into a law school. Make sure that they have a clinic program. It's so beneficial. And it's obviously gonna look amazing on your resume because you actually were a lawyer, like you have a temporary license to practice and you are out there and you're doing the work. So yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Ruth, because I think that a lot of times people overlook how important clinic is and how that can even have more weight and gravity than actually being on law review and doing nothing else in law school. Because at the end of the day, like you said, you're an active practicing attorney, and every single one of these ladies, myself included, we all did clinic. and we all did various forms of clinic. Tanisha did the civil rights clinic. Shanice did the criminal defense clinic. I think she's actually getting ready to argue before the Louisiana Supreme Court. Yeah, I know, big stuff. And Gabby did family law, and Bree did the law and technology clinic and was actually creating database systems for legal professionals. Ruth did the immigration clinic, and Ruth done had like 5 like asylum victories, like came out the gate like hardcore, shutting like everybody down. And I worked in the employment law clinic, and my first 4 months in the employment law clinic, I settled 2 cases, which had been being litigated for 2 years. So you can get a lot of experience from that. And present lawyers look upon that in such a favorable light. So don't think that your only way of getting recognition and getting someone to look at you is only through moot court or law review or journal. There are so many different avenues that you can go through in order to still get that practical experience and to get acknowledgement of, the work that you're doing in law school.
Can I just add something to that really quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. Law school does not prepare you to be a lawyer.
Oh, no.
Law school prepares you to pass the bar. And I don't think anyone fully really explained what clinic is, but clinic is basically like you stepping into the shoes of a lawyer and advocating on your client's behalf. Clinic is more aligned with what you actually do in practice. So I think it's important to keep that perspective when you're in law school, because like I said, law school is literally only preparing you to pass the bar. What you do after passing the bar and like how you interact with clients, in order to gain insight and knowledge on that, like that's all about the activities that you do throughout law school, like doing clinic or like joining different organizations and like your internships and stuff like that.
Just to add to that, one of the attorneys that volunteered in my clinic, she said that when she got her first job, like nobody else did clinic, so this other guy, associate, he went to Tulane, he had really high grades, did all that, journal and everything, but he did not know how to work a case, nothing. And so he would always go to her and ask her for like, can you please look at this before I submit it to the boss? Can you please look at this before I file it? Because she says with clinic, you have more experience in a first year, second year associate, because you like everyone's been saying, you're trying cases, and it's very nerve-wracking at first, but once you have that first case under your belt and you go into the courtroom and the judges look at you like you're a lawyer, they just talk to you like you're a normal lawyer, and the clients, their cases in your hands and they're trusting you and with their problems, and it gives you so much confidence. You're like, I can actually do this. So I think one of my best decisions was doing clinic. And it doesn't matter if you do a clinic that you have no interest in. I don't want to do family law, like ever. But the valuable experience I gained from doing family law cases, it's priceless, because you go to court like every day, you're filing motions every day, and you're just doing stuff every day, you're being a lawyer. So even if your school does have a clinic and it's not in anything that you want to do after you graduate, just do it. Just do it for the experience, do it for the practice.
And 9 times out of 10, what I've also learned, I'm sure everybody else would agree, is that no matter what clinic you're in, whatever field you end up in is probably going to touch that piece of law anyway. Like I've had, clients who've had issues when it came to divorce and child custody. I think that probably Ruth and Shanice can probably say the same. Like law is such a fluid field that oftentimes you're going to have a client that has a wide range of issues. And so you're gonna, maybe you don't necessarily need to be an expert in that particular field, but having the slightest bit of knowledge will prove to be very helpful in advocating for your client properly, right? So like Gabby said, no matter what kind of field it's in, go and do clinic, because that's practical experience that you're not going to get in the classroom. You're not going to necessarily, they're going to teach you how to write a memo, right, to your managing attorney, but they're not going to teach you how to write a motion for attorney's fees, right? They're not going to teach you how to write an opposition motion to a motion for summary judgment. They're not going to teach you those things. You're going to learn that stuff in the practical space, which is clinic, right? So moving on from that, yes,
I'll put
Tanisha.
it in the chat. Harvard has a clinic, so even if you don't do it at your own school, and they are looking for people of color, I did it my second summer. I'll put my email down. You can even read my blog about it. It'll have all the information. Just know, like other schools, Yale has one. I think Princeton has one. Like other schools have clinics that you can do in the summer if you feel like your law school journey is going elsewhere, and you'll still get the exact same experience, just in a different state.
And I'll make sure to include everybody's contact information and any helpful websites or links. I'll make sure to include that in the chat section so that everybody can visit those on their own time once this panel concludes. The next topic that I want to talk about is a pretty heavy topic, and it's heavy because I think it's one of the things that has become more of a spotlighted issue now, and that's mental health. And especially in the legal field, and unfortunately in law school, mental health and issues regarding mental health is a really serious issue. And oftentimes it comes about because of personal things that happen in our familial settings and stuff like that. I want to talk to Ruth about that, just in terms of, how you dealt with some of the issues personally that you had going on and how it affected you mentally and how you overcame any issues that you might have had.
So law school was extremely mentally draining for me. I had, sorry, it's still really hard to talk about it.
Sorry, I don't want to make you cry.
I lost my father right before starting law school, and I mean like months prior. It was the hardest thing I ever had to go through, but sorry. I had to get it together. I really had to get it together, and I decided what was going to be the best thing. Like, I had to move from California to Louisiana, and it was this decision of, okay, my dad has just passed away. Am I going to go to law school, or am I going to, let this opportunity, go to waste? And so I took it and I ran with it, and I brought my dog with me. She was huge. She was such an emotional support for me, because law school itself is so draining. It's draining mentally, physically. And I felt like if I didn't have my dog for emotional support my first year, like there were a lot of nights that, like I said, I also had the whole probation thing going on. And it was just like everything, you just feel like the world is crumbling down on you. And it's just, it came down to sometimes literally I was sitting on my couch crying, and my dog would literally just hop on my lap and just be there for me. And it was, it took away like all these dark thoughts, all this negative energy I had of what am I doing here? Like sometimes you are your worst enemy. So I can't leave out the fact that the group of friends that I made in law school played such a huge part in my success in law school. I remember Alexis and Shanice were one of the first few people to come up to me in one of our classes, and we got really close from the very start. And I'm a pretty open person. I think because I would get emotional anytime we went out to social events, and oh my God, I was a mess. I was literally crying at like every event, and like,
what was going on? I said, "Is she all right?" This everything. And then of course, you learn later what the
I'm talking about a full on, like, oh my God, I'm a hot mess. But no, like these ladies, all my friends that I made in law school, they were so supportive, and it was just that simple. I'm only a text away. And even though, you have your friends, I have my friends from, here in California, but it's not the same. Sometimes you want somebody who's nearby, like, hey, can we get together? You want to go get a drink, something, like it helps. It really helps. It takes away that loneliness, because even I think as first generation students, like that sense of loneliness does impact you. And then, grief is something that, that it's so, I don't think you overcome. I can't say you overcome it. It's something that you kind of get used to. But yeah, I think at the same time, it was also for me learning how to turn that grief into like my strength. This is what should be pushing me, like my dad worked so hard to make sure I had this opportunity, and I took this opportunity. Why am I going to fail him now? So I think for anybody who's experiencing grief while going through this process, a lot of it is going to be for you to mentally train yourself to remember to turn it into your strength, and look back at like, how proud would this person be of you, seeing what type of seat you're in and what position you're in and how much you're doing and how much you're changing clients' lives. It's such a rewarding feeling afterwards, but the journey to work through the grief and the stresses of law school all at the same time, it is exhausting, but you're able to do it. This is something that's definitely within reach.
And it proves how strong you truly are, to be honest. Bree, what about you? Because you went through a similar experience in the first year of law school, which is also supposed to be our most crucial year of law school.
Yeah, so towards the end of my first year, I lost my uncle very suddenly. My uncle was pretty much like a dad to me. And matter of fact, this was like maybe like a week and a half before our moot court argument and our brief was due. So like I had all of that going on at the same time. And I remember like we buried him the Saturday before Easter, and our written argument was due the Tuesday after. Mm-hmm. So it was literally like I had to go from that mindset to like school. And I will say one of my biggest regrets during that time frame was like not taking time to grieve. And I think for me, it was that mindset of like, I have to keep going because it was so close to the end of the semester and it was such a big assignment that I was just like, I just have to do it. And ultimately it affected me in the long run because my grades that semester were absolute garbage. Well, I wouldn't even say that. I was just going through something, and
you were going through it.
Yeah. And like my grades just reflected that. And I just remember like taking that summer, and this is why I mentioned it earlier in the panel discussion, that you have to change your perspective on a lot of things, because during that time, like I was so upset that I didn't get like a big law firm job that was going to pay me all this money. I was going to work at the PD's office. But at the end of the day, God put me in that situation for a reason, because I gained such valuable insight from that internship that I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. So after that summer, I just went into my 2 year of law school, like, listen, this is not something that I can carry with me. I need help on how to get past this. So I utilized the on-campus counseling services that are offered through my school. And I started going to, talk to the therapist on campus like every other week. And that was my way of like talking through what was going on and getting past that. And like, honestly, after that, like my grades got better, my perspective on law school got better. I was able to channel that grief into a way that was beneficial to me, like Ruth said. And at the end of the day, like when you're going through something, you don't understand that everything is happening for a reason. Everything is propelling you into a direction that you need to go to. And I think sometimes when you're in that level of grief, like it's hard to move past it and to put things in perspective. And sometimes you need help in literally getting yourself together. And it's okay to reach out to resources that are free to you on campus, or like if you have a professor that you feel comfortable talking to, talk to them or your friends and stuff like that. Because also when you're in law school, you feel so isolated, even though everyone around you is going through the same thing. It's like the weirdest feeling ever. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, all of these people are people that I talk to pretty much on a daily basis, but at the end of the day, it just felt like they didn't understand what I was going through. So it's like, sometimes it takes that outside person to bring that perspective into your life to let you know, like, listen, this sucks and it's okay for you to feel this way, but how are you going to turn that into something positive?
That's really, that really is such an important thing that you just said, because I feel like all of us probably utilize the mental health therapist at some point on this panel. And all of us are dynamic women, and all of us at some point felt like we were stretched too far, and to the point where you felt like, okay, I need to talk to somebody who can help me process not only what's happening to me, but how do I get past this part? Because I don't understand this, and I don't understand why I'm suffering this mental block here, and I need to know how to get over it. And I wanted to point to Gabby really quick, just because I was always very, very surprised at how Gabby was able to shut things down. Like, nope, not doing that. Not going to be involved with that. Oh, nope, can't meet you to go out here because I need a mental health break. And she was so quick to and she had no problem just being like, no, girl, I'm not going to make it. Y'all go ahead, have a good time. But I feel like that was important.
You guys are very good at understanding when I think just having diagnosed with something at a very young age, it kind of changed your perspective. I mean, I'll say it, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was sophomore in college. And my first neurologist told me that, he was like, I don't know why you're going to such a rough field. He's like, and he basically just was very negative and telling me I couldn't do things. And especially as a person of color, woman, he's like, you have this disease. I don't know why you're going. Is there something else you want to go into that's less stressful? And so I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to come back to this office and I'm going to come talk to that was sometimes that's all it takes for you to just kind of just keep going. And I had several relapses that were because I just kept on going and going and going. I did not take breaks, because when you're a Black woman, a Black immigrant female, you feel so much pressure to be better than everybody else, to be even regarded on the same level. So, for example, you have to do 10 times better than a white male to be even looked at the same way. And so it's a lot of pressure. And so I was like, I don't have time for this disease. I really don't. But I saw how the stress that I was under affected my health. So I had to learn to know my body and to kind of be aware of what signs my body was giving me. So even if fun stuff would be stressful and could affect me. So, like Alexis said, when they said, oh, let's do this, I'm like, I love you guys so much now, bye. And everybody would be fine with it. They would just be like, oh, Gabby's not coming. I would just in the group chat, just not respond. And someone would say, yeah, Gabby's definitely not joining us today. But it's definitely important to know yourself and to know your limits, because like all of my fellow colleagues have said, law school puts a lot of pressure to do everything, to be part of every organization, to do moot court, to do journal, to just do everything. And at some point, you have to just decide, I'm not going to do this. Like everyone was saying, you have to know what you want to do after law school and what will help you get there. So if journal is not the thing for you, if law firms, like Tanisha was saying, that's not for you, don't stress yourself. Don't put your health at risk by doing something that you don't really want to do. And I think the hardest lesson I learned in law school was that life continues. Like, just real life continues. You have family members that die. Like, I remember I was in class and my dad texted me that my grandpa died, and I just kind of, the world just kind of like stopped moving. And so, but I was writing notes and I was crying and writing notes because you have to keep going. And so having a strong group of friends was definitely key for me. Like, I don't know, I could not have gotten through law school without you guys. I remember I started crying and you guys were just like kidnapped me and like took me somewhere. They're like, let's go get Chinese and just watch movies all day. You don't need to go back to school. Sometimes you need to have a friend that will just, you know. And
Can I add something to that really quick?
All you guys for that.
Yeah. So also, like, do not let outside people tell you anything about the process of law school. Like, if they have never gone to law school or they're not in law school, they have no idea what it entails. And I will never forget, this goes off of what Gabby was saying when her doctor was like, why are you going to law school? After my first year, I was at the doctor's office and I was like literally sitting in the parking lot in my car, like refreshing Laura, trying to look at my grades. And this was a semester, I'll just be honest, like I literally had like 4 C's and like 1 B-. And I was literally just devastated. And I remember like sitting in my car telling myself, like, you have to get it together so you can walk into this doctor's office. So I go to the doctor's office, and this was actually like a medical concern. Like, I had low platelet levels. They were trying to make sure I was okay. They had to draw blood and all of this. And I just remember the pathologist like asking me these questions, and I literally just broke down. Like, literally, she asked me like, so are you in school? And after that, like that one question, I literally just broke down. And, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm in law school. And she was like, you know, what's the matter? I was like, I just got all my grades back. And I just, you know, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I will never for the life of me forget what this woman told me. She was like, well, maybe if you focus more on studying and like doing all of this, like your grades could get better. And like, literally, I was just like, I spent 12 plus hours in the library studying for an exam that I still managed to get a C on. I wasn't out on bourbon. I was not in the French Quarter. Like, I wasn't doing anything. I was in the library.
Right. Should have been on bourbon. Shoot, got to see. Might as well have been on bourbon. Okay. Yeah.
No, I say that. Yeah. I say that to like, don't let anybody's in your ear tell you anything about the process. Because at the end of the day, they have no idea what this process entails at all.
Absolutely. And okay, so with that, the bourbon and the like knowing you and what's good for you, I want to talk specifically to Tanisha and Shanice, because Tanisha and Shanice were the ones in law school who had no problem like turning up and like having like a lot of fun. Right? No, we all had a lot of fun, let's be clear. A lot of fun. But they in particular like were the ones who really had no problem turning up Friday to Saturday, studying all day Sunday, and then taking the exam on Monday. I'll never understand how they did it, but it's also, I wanted to highlight that because I think it's important to not feel like, oh, I've got to close myself off from the world and not do anything and just, you know, just be like a study hermit or whatever. It's important to know yourself, right? So I'm gonna start with Shanice and then I'm gonna kick it to Tanisha.
I would like to add Ruth to that too, because wait, what was the question about? Yeah, so I'm a work hard, like play hard type of person. I try to think of it like if that was my, all right, like say if something happens to me right now, right? And I'm like, what was the last fun thing I did? Like, really? I was just in the house studying or at school studying, like that's all I was doing. So I really have to have some type of balance. So that's usually something social, just because, you know, if I'm at my house by myself, now I'm better at it, but I wasn't like that before. But I definitely always made school the first priority, but I made like my mental health / it's just the way I am. I have to do something to escape it. Like my mind can't study for that long without having some type of break or some type of escape. So I think I do that. And I think I'm just a personal study type of person. So you might not see me studying all the time, but you don't know that when I got home, I was studying, or I woke up at 5 a.m. to go review stuff because that's when my mind works the best. So yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Yeah, real quick. First of all, like I said, I went to Tulane, but like me and these ladies, we have had a beautiful time together. I think I was just telling Lexus this the other day. I was like, I think I made it look easy on social media because everybody definitely saw me turning up a lot. But 1L year, like I was very, very detailed and organized with my schedule. I outlined my day hour by the hour, and I stuck to that. And I was at the library on Saturdays. I would study from like 9 to 5 on Saturdays. 7 o'clock, I was at a bar. I was somewhere else. Like it was just like, okay, I can let this go. Sunday, I was at church, whether it was online or physically at church. Sunday evening, I was trying to watch Insecure. Monday through Friday, some people like they would do 9 to 5 and not pick up a book ever again. I work good at night. So like I'm a night owl, so I'll be at the library like late at night. Everybody's like, oh, you up? I'm like, yeah, I'm at the library. Then like Shanice said, we end up like I learned how to study at home without like not studying. But we definitely enjoyed ourselves. I planned so many brunches, so many happy hours. Shanice threw so many kickbacks at her house for every event. We went to music festivals. We traveled. Mardi Gras, we lived our best lives. Essence Festival, well, we weren't in school then anyways, but like just everything. And we made it work. And you can do it, and you can say no to some things. I won't say I went out every weekend. Like it was times Shanice wasn't there. It was times Tanisha wasn't there. It was times Bree, Gabby, Ruth, Lexus, like we were not there because we prioritize. You lose yourself when you're like, oh, I can do it later. No, you can't. Oh, I'm gonna do it first, then I'm gonna hit you up. So that, and I still do that to this day. Like we went somewhere last night. Oh, it's quarantine. We didn't go anywhere. But like I still like prioritize my schedule as needed. And you can do that. Like my 1L year, I'm telling you, I wish I had my planner like sitting right here so y'all can see it was very color coded. And then we had a good time. Bree, I used to like go wash at her house, cook, like do everything. And you can do it all in law school. Well, no, you can't. You don't have to do it all. And I did want to say on the last topic, God in therapy is very possible. God in therapy is very possible. God in therapy is very possible. And I really wanted to say that because, like Lexus said, I went to therapy as well, and it was so crazy. And it just all worked out. Like you can do both, and you will come out fabulous. Because look at us, like we graduated, y'all. So
no, and that's a real thing. I think that you know, like I was saying before, a lot of people don't talk about that, but I can say that like God and therapy were the reason, and of course my mama, were the reason that I made it through law school. Because, you know, you don't think about, like everyone else on here says, that you don't think about the fact that like everything's moving so fast and you're doing so much and you're having a good time and you're trying to be the best law student, trying to be the best student attorney. And sometimes you need a moment to like reset. And I can say, you know, my own personal experience was, I was definitely a person like, you know, I'm a person who wants to be, like, if I'm gonna be in it, I'm gonna be all the way in it, right? And so for me in particular, I had worked before going back to law school. So going back to law school was very different financially, just because like I went from having, you know, a well-paying job to like, now I gotta live off of freaking student refund checks that's like so minuscule. And I have like, you know, I have an expensive taste in quality of life. And so I worked at the bar. I became a bartender and was bartending at nights, going to school during the day, bartending at nights. And then at one point, I was working like 3 jobs. I was bartending, working at a law firm, and then also, I don't even remember the other place I worked, but I had 3 jobs and it was too much. And also, yeah, and then doing all the stuff in law school, competing on national child ad teams, and my body shut down. I had a whole panic attack and I was like, what the hell is going on? What's happening to me? And I can say that like through prayer, through visiting the mental health therapist on campus, and having a super supportive friend group, like hands down was the only reason why I was able to like get back up and say, okay, I'm gonna be okay and I can finish this. Because if I had not had those things, I just don't know if I would have been able to, you know, really move past that part of my life. So I think it's important to, you know, don't stifle yourself, right? But also my favorite quote that our dean of Loyola has used in the last couple of Zoom calls was, give yourself grace, right? And so like we used to kind of like laugh whenever she said it because she said it so much. We love her. But I realized how important that is, giving yourself grace, right? Because giving yourself grace means being kind to yourself in the space that you're in, being kind to yourself along the journey that you're in, and recognizing that this journey is difficult. And especially as women of color, the journey's definitely difficult, but acknowledging that it's going to be okay and that we can get past that part too, right? Okay. So with that, one of the last things that I want to talk about is post-bar life, right? And I wanted to talk really briefly just on finances, because I think that one of the things everybody is like always geeked about is like, okay, I got to law school, I'm here, you know, I'm about to be this poppin' attorney, all this other stuff, but nobody really talks about the cost of law school. And oftentimes, especially as people of color and women of color, the finances can be an issue for us, right? Because we're first generation law students. And unless you're like wealthy or whatever, financing law school can be a issue. And post law school, financing your bar exam prep can be very expensive, right? So I'm gonna just briefly just touch on what you guys did that you felt was helpful in terms of financing law school, and what you guys did that you felt was helpful in terms of financing your bar exam prep. So anybody can take it.
I'll start. So, like I said, I've wanted to be a lawyer for such a long time. And I just remember, like, my mom has a master's degree in social work. So she kind of knew how much higher education would cost. So when I got to high school, my mom definitely sat down and had that conversation with me, like, listen, this is where you want to go in life. This is how much this is going to cost. You know, we can figure it out together, but I need to know that you're going to give this your best effort every step along the way. So for as far as financing law school, I had a scholarship in law school. I lost it for a semester because of my grades, but I gained it back the following semester. But outside of that little, like, I think it was like maybe $10,000, and then I got like another couple thousand from BALSA from applying to a scholarship. Aside from that, like, it was graduate plus loan. So I am 6 figures in at this point. So And then while in law school, like I've been the type of person to hold, like Alexis, I could hold down 2 or 3 jobs if I have to, because I have expensive taste and my mom loves telling me no. So if I want something, I have to do it myself. So I got a job that fit into my schedule. Thanks to Shanice. We worked at the same place for a little while. I literally just picked up morning shifts at an indoor spin gym, and I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning, clock in at 5, clock out at 8:30, take my ass to class and do it. Work afternoons if I had to. Like even if it was $100 paycheck, it was something that would help me get groceries, get a drink if I wanted to, go get dinner with my friends. Like it was just the one source of independence that I had where I didn't have to ask someone else for money. As far as the bar, I was very lucky in that aspect because Barbie like messed up my account my second year. So they ended up giving me like a huge discount. And from there, my mom and my godmother offered to split the cost of my bar prep and pay for it. So that was something that I didn't have to worry about. So I'm extremely blessed and thankful for that. But yeah, like you make it work. You figure it out. If it's something that you really want, you will figure it out.
Go Gabby, go ahead.
So before law school, I think not before law school, but like I think like one all year, my finances were not that great because, you know, I moved here with just my suitcases. So I had to purchase furniture and basically just buy like a whole furniture in the entire apartment. So, and like Alexis was saying, those loans they give you the refund, it's barely enough to sustain you, to feed you and to keep you alive until after finals. And so, yeah, I definitely had to reach out to my dad. And I'm not a person that likes to ask for money, and my dad knows that because I always worked through college, even before college. Like I would work to, if I had a balance on my school, for undergrad, I would stop school and I would work to pay it. So like I was used to that. So having to ask my dad for like $100, $200 because I need food, it was really hard because I was so used to just getting things on my own. You really had to humble yourself a little bit when you come to law school because, you know, the school makes sure that you can afford to eat, but that's basically it. And so my dad told me, you need to make sure, you know, bar prep is expensive. You have to make sure you have money for that. But you can't really save money from student loans. You can't really save money from the refund they give you because it's basically just enough to get you by. And so it was hard. I mean, I'm still have like a few $100 left to pay for bar prep, and it's like you don't know where that's coming from. So starting 2 all year, your second year, you have to start thinking about how am I going to pay for bar prep, even though I still have a year and a half left. So it's definitely hard. I've never not worked. And so it was definitely an adjustment to me to not be able to work, pay stuff for my own, get what I want, pay my bills. But, you know, you have to be okay with being very poor in law school, but it's all worth it in the end, so they say. I say it's worth it.
Yeah. You wanted to comment, right?
Yeah, I won't even go into too many details because I literally just wrote a very extensive blog post about the cost of law school. Just real quick for the pre-law students on here, law school is gonna cost. That's just what it is. It's gonna cost hundreds of thousands. The better the school, the more it costs. So what I really was sharing in my blog is like, don't be afraid of loans, be smart with them. Yes, apply for it, try and get a scholarship. But it's okay if you don't get one. I think we all may have received one and we still took out like all these loans. Mm-hmm. So just be okay with that. The average student graduates with about $145,000 worth of student loan debt. I talked about refunds in the blog. My refund every semester, not every year, was $10,000. And you will probably think like
we all had the same.
Yeah, we all had $10,000. You're like, this is magical. Yeah, rent is $950. If you pay that up for 6 months, you out for $6,000. Your textbooks are $1,000. Your lights, your Wi-Fi. You know, you got to have food in your house. It's just like you go broke.
$1,000.
Yeah, it's like okay, and then your credit card bill and I was explaining in my blog that like as a person who we're all first generation, you know, my mom, single mother, like. I went to school with a lot of privileged Black and white students who could ask their moms to like pay for everything, pay for their rent and stuff, and just be confident in knowing like it's okay. Your family can send you like $50 on Cash App and stuff. It won't be 10,000. It's okay. I hustled throughout law school. I had jobs on campus. I didn't do off campus. I quit them. I'm like, yeah, I'm tired of this because law school is law school. You will get through. You will have a village. It was times I'm like, okay, y'all, I'm having wine night. I'm buying a wine, or like maybe y'all can bring a bottle. Like we all, did it together. Bar prep, me and Alexis, we were Barbary reps. There's like, how there's like pre-law study courses like Kaplan and Power School, all that stuff, where there's also like pre-bar study courses, and Kaplan, Barbary, and Theme is a couple of them. And they all try and sell these $3,000 to $4,000 bar courses to law students. Yeah, they cost that much. But if you are a Barbary rep or a Kaplan rep or a Themis rep, they're pretty much going to pay for it.
They're free. Be a rep. It's free.
Be a rep. It's only 1 hour out the week that you sit at the table and you tell your classmates like, oh, you should buy Barbary. Oh, you should buy Kaplan, whatever.
I think Kaplan pays their people.
And Kaplan get a stipend. Barbary is the best though. So we used Barbary and we got a stipend at the end because we were head reps our 3L year and our bar course was free. So like we'll give you all those plugs later on, but like us, we need to be reps because who mama have $4,000 to give us to study for the bar exam.
And that's the truth. Like, had I known, let me tell you something. I found on a whim, like my neighbor before I went to law school said to me, oh, when you get to law school, make sure you become a rep. I didn't even know what that meant. I thought that was like something to put on your resume, y'all. And then the guy hired me. And then he was like, yeah, the best part about it is that, you get to get bar prep for free. So I didn't even, it didn't register to me like what that actually meant until honestly my 3L year. Because then when all of my friends started being like, Alexis, this thing says like $2,500. How am I like gonna pay for this? Or do y'all got payment plans? I was stressed because they were stressed. I was like, oh my God, like had I known, I would have told all my friends, like, come on, y'all, be reps, because you don't even know that you have the law school bill, which is being paid for with scholarships, grants, and loans, right? But then you don't realize that after you're finished with law school, you still have to actually pay in order to study for the bar exam and then also live while you're studying for the bar exam. So that's another $10,000 that is not available. So I think that, that is important to realize that also is a cost factor. And Barbary is not the only way that you can get your bar exam paid, your bar prep courses paid for. Shanice, with getting her firm job, and this is one of the perks of getting a firm job, is that when you get a firm job, they give you your salary, they give you a signing bonus, right, Shanice? They give you...
Every firm does it, but
every firm I think it's basically like the top 100, top 200 law firms. They give you a signing bonus, they commit to whatever your salary is going to be, and then they also pay for your bar exam prep course. So that's like something.
Huh? Expenses that you incurred related to the bar, they reimburse you.
Right. So that means when she say expenses related to the bar, that means etc. That means like in addition to, like basically any expenses.
Run it up.
Right. Like anything you can say, this cost me money, this Uber, I had to take an Uber to the location. That's all considered a part of bar related expenses. So that's one of the perks of getting a firm job. So you want to explore all of those opportunities, because at the end of the day, your whole thing is that this is an investment, but how am I going to cash in on my investment, right? So also Barbary rep, or being a bar prep rep, looking at bar exam, looking at law firms to pay for your bar related expenses. Another thing is that don't be afraid to ask for money, okay? Gabby most recently was able to get funding secured for her bar prep course, okay? And it was merely off of just sending an email and saying, listen, this
You
is,
have to stay on, you have to stay on because you just have to stay on them because they will always say, oh, we don't know if we have money, we don't have funding, we don't know if we have funding. They do. So just keep after them. So
right. Don't be afraid to ask your law school for help.
And also, you are paying 6 figures worth of tuition. If they can't give you a $200 Walmart gift card when you need something, transfer. Like, that's not the school for you. Like, at the end of the day, especially during this COVID-19 crisis, like, every time I reached out to my school, like, I need this, I need that, I need this. Like, they've been here. What's your address? Can you pick it up? Can you meet somebody? Like, at the end of the day, if they want you to be successful and they want you to graduate and carry on the name of their school, they will do what it has to take. And if they're about to use your face, your Black face for whatever they need for their school, putting it on pamphlets, putting it on whatever, get everything you can get out of them.
Listen, I had to give me a hotspot, okay? Because you got to get whatever you can. And I know it sounds like, oh, like whatever, but you don't recognize that like all of this stuff comes with a cost, right? And like Bree just said, when COVID-19 happened and came crashing down on us, literally all of us were displaced, okay? We were the resources that you pay for at a law school, the brick and mortar institution that you pay to be in, the printing capabilities, the wireless capabilities, everything that you pay for, you no longer have access to, right? And you've already spent this money and sent them, they've already gotten their check. So it's important for you, and they're not going to tell you to ask them for anything because they don't want to tell you that. It's important for you to seek that out and say, hey, I'm going through this. This is what I need. I just, I'm having trouble taking care of this particular financial issue. I need assistance in this. And like Bree said, if they want you to be successful, they will do what they have to do. Okay? They will make sure that your bills are covered, and they will make sure that you have all the resources necessary in order to be a successful alum of their institution.
Right. And I will definitely add to that. Like, my family always says this, like, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you sit in suffering, like, no one's going to help you. You have to speak up and let people know, like, this is what is going on in my life. Can you do something to help me?
Right. Exactly. And I think also, just really quickly, I just want to point on applying for scholarships that are not necessarily associated with the law school. Apply to everything. If they send an email out and they say, all you need to do is write a little $500, a 500-word essay, write it, do it. Even if you procrastinate to write it until 3 hours before it's due, do it. Because this is literally, no, for real, this is like free money that so many of us like basically just pass over because, oh, I don't feel like doing it in the moment. And I can tell you this year, I got $1,000 from my law school's alumni association off of like, I wrote like I think I had to send just like in my resume. And then I was up against 2 other people and we had to do like an interview. And it was $1,000 that they gave me within a week. Another organization, the National Bar Association, they had a 500-word essay on, what I would tell my younger self in 20 years about being in the legal profession. I did that. That was another $1,000 that I got. And literally, I think in both of those instances, it probably took out 4 hours of my life to submit my stuff for both of those opportunities, and I was able to get them. So it's important to whatever scholarship or anything that you hear about, invest the time in order to do that, because oftentimes you're going to be able to benefit in those situations. One of the last things that I want to close our panel with and that I want to talk about, and we've referenced it many times throughout this discussion, but I think it's important to use that as the closing piece, is talking about imposter syndrome and how that has affected any or all of you while in law school, and what you felt was the thing that helped you as a person of color, as a woman of color, get past the imposter syndrome, and ultimately what led to your success in closing out your law school chapter. So we'll start with, I'm gonna just randomly pick Ruth.
Oh yeah, I had imposter syndrome all 3 years of law school, and I think it wasn't until I got my final grades that I was like, okay, yo, I did that.
Wait, I'm sorry, Ruth. Before you finish, I want to, because we didn't really even go into what imposter syndrome is, right? And so I think it's important, obviously, to give the definition of that. So imposter syndrome is basically where a person who is qualified, capable, basically meets all of the requirements to be in whatever space that they're in. For some reason, they still feel like what they're doing and the work that they're producing doesn't add up, and that they are not enough, and that they are not qualified to be in this space, even though realistically they are. So I just wanted to clear that up. Okay, take it away.
Yeah, so I definitely all 3 years, there were always these, you know, it was like a burst of like emotion every time that you would get it, because it's just like this whole feeling of, what am I like how am I here? Why am I doing this? Like, they made a mistake. Somebody sent me an accidental acceptance letter, you know, like so it's just, I don't know how I can really say that I got over it, because deep down, I think it was just like I was at war with myself, constantly believing like, why am I here? And then at the same time being the same person telling myself like, you're meant to be here, you work this hard. And I am going blank right now. I don't know why. Let me see. I think when it hit me the strongest, well, there were 2 instances that it hit me like really the strongest. It was when I had my externship with the immigration court. I was like, I am not suited to do this. Like, I just remember like my first day at the immigration court, I was like, oh my God, like I'm only gonna prove them what they believe about me. So here I went in with this mind state of like, this is what they think of me, right? And it was this whole like, you know, you block out the things like that matter, which is they considered me. Not only did they consider me, but they accepted me to be in this place, to be in this position. And you're the only one questioning yourself at that point. And it's just like this, oh my God, am I not gonna write to their standards? Am I not gonna do this? They would have not put you in that position if they didn't think you were capable. So that was one of the instances that imposter syndrome hit me really hard. And then the second one was when I got my asterisks for my classes. That was something that I literally looked at it. I can't tell you how many times I kept looking over at like, no, this is like, it's gonna be gone. Like I kept logging out and logging back in just to make sure it wasn't like an error, it didn't like disappear or something. It literally is just, I think part of my imposter syndrome came because certain things that were happening in my life, I couldn't believe were happening to me. I would have never seen myself. If you were to ask me where I thought I would have been in 5 years ago, I I would have never imagined I would have done everything that I did up to this point. So I think a huge part of it was just like this belief that I'm actually here. I actually did that. And I think it's imposter syndrome is it's a battle within yourself.
I'll speak real quick. I was just on a panel like right before COVID-19. My school asked me to sit on a panel about this. I first realized I had imposter syndrome my second year when I called my mentor and told him that, oh, I decided I'm going to get my master's of business administration along with my JD. And my mentor like really read me. I don't even know if you all remember Alexis and Shanice. Y'all were at the school for like a competition with Clay. And when I walked in there, I had just got done crying. I was like, I don't know, my mentor just got my life together. And he was like, don't you have a bachelor's in business? And I do. And he was like, so tell me what courses would be different that you would be taking in your master's. And I was like trying to go through the course log, and I'm like, man, it's the same classes I took already. He was like, who are you trying to prove something to? He was like, why do you think that a JD is not good enough? Why do you feel like you need to get an MBA as well? Other students do it. It's totally fine if you're getting a dual degree. Like I salute everybody who's doing it, but me, my intentions were wrong. So like 2 days later, he texted me. He was like, I think you're struggling with the imposter syndrome. And like, I just had to take a step back and was like, yes, I'm tripping. I did so much at Tulane Law. I was very good to Tulane Law. Tulane was very good to me. But I just did so much. And I realized that there were a lot of times I was overcompensating because I thought like, okay, as the only Black woman in this room, I have to do this, because I don't belong, or the things that I'm saying are actually like, I don't even think they're sounding really good. Like I'll be in a moot court meeting and I'll give some insight. And I'm like, man, they probably not even going to accept this. You're just thinking like, you done read everything, you've done everything, and you're just thinking like, okay, actually this maybe not sound as good as I thought it did in my head. Like maybe I really don't belong here. And I really struggled with it my 2L year and kind of to my 3L year. But I had pulled up what I told them, just some few practical tips on like how to overcome it. Because telling yourself is one thing, like believing is another. Be real with yourself and allow yourself to feel all the feelings of inadequacy and imperfection, doubt, insecurity more. Like I just had to one day like look myself in the mirror and just cry it out. Like my room, I love this apartment. I'm moving and I hate it, but I love it because this room has felt every emotion that I've ever felt. And I just let myself feel everything, like cried it out. I just cried it out. Then the next thing you should do is like shake it off, wipe your tears, shake your head, clear your mind, say no. Then y'all make a list of all the amazing things about you and that you have done. I told Lexus this one day. I was like, girl, have you ever wrote a list of everything you've done in law school? Like even the stuff you don't put on your resume because it can't fit. And even to this day in my phone, I have a running list of everything that I've done. And I'm like, you are that girl. And I probably use some other words like it's a hot girl summer. You are just like that girl and you kill it. And you write that list down and you check that list on the days that you're like feeling like, man, I'm not doing enough, like y'all, I worked at Harvard and I almost denied that. And I was thinking like, I don't know, I guess I thought I didn't belong in that space. So cry it out, shake it off, write a list of all the amazing things, write a journal about it or whatever you have to do. Read books. I read a lot. And if you go to law school, you read a lot too. So be intentional about reading. I always tell people You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero is a really good book. Select a quote or a scripture or something. If you got to write it on your mirror, write it in your phone, put it on a sticky note like Gabriela Union. Do that, read that every day. And then like I was very intentional of coming out of this dark spot. So like I was doing all of that. I started listening to podcasts, the sermons, Sarah Jakes Roberts, like whatever, like every morning before I did anything else, music was playing, like just to build myself up. And then remember like the words of Auntie Michelle Obama. Look, you're probably the smartest one at that table. They are dumb. And I do believe that because some of the stuff that come out of these students' mouths, I'm like, did you not hear what the professor just said? Like, are you dumb? Like they just say anything. And you're sitting there like, okay. So just know that you belong in every space. You belong, if for pre-law students, apply, you belong there. For current law students who are watching, sis or brother, sis, this is for you. You were made for this. You You are like, this is your table. You really bringing the tables and all the chairs, and they are just so happy to be in your presence. Believe it or not, a lot of them later on told me like, T, like we don't know how you did all of this. Like, I'm like, yes, Black girl magic. You have Black girl magic. You have Latina girl magic. You are it. You are fine. And like, literally, we're saying these, but you have to believe it. And that's what I had to do second year and third year. And I had to let them know, like, I'm really not the one. And I had to tell myself that you really are the one. So.
And then just to add something to that, I always move with the affirmation that like God would not ever bring me to something that he would not get me through. Literally, that is the background on my phone. Like literally, that's the quote. Like God would never put something on my heart that he knew that I could never follow through with. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to remind yourself that like, listen, things may seem whack right now, but like T said, like I've done this for myself. I've done that for myself. I gotten myself out of this situation in my life. Like you have survived your worst days in life. Keep going. Like you got it in you. Just keep going, keep fighting it. And it's easier said than done, but you got to tap into those resources that remind you who you are at the end of the day. And you got to, like, for me personally, like one of my favorite professors, like I ended up writing my writing requirement for him. And I literally was just looking at that 25 pages, like, this is so mediocre. Like, this is so garbage. I literally read his email of my notes. He was like, this was one of the best papers that I read. And it's like, sometimes you are your worst critic. Like you have to just put it aside, do what you got to do and get it done.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, like you said, put it aside and get it done, because it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in our own minds and believe that, oh, you know, am I really supposed to be here? Do I really deserve this space? Oh, do I sound smart? Do I fit? Do I belong? Like, you know, I don't come from a family of money or whatever. All of these things contribute. I mean, like, I remember my first year, I ran to be the president of the Sports and Entertainment Law Society. And so Shanice actually was running with me. And so we had concocted like this whole like campaign initiative. And we like, okay, this is going to be our cabinet and this is who we're going to put in place. And I lost and I was livid. Like, I just was like, I should not have lost, all this other stuff. And I remember the second year when they were getting ready to have the Sports and Entertainment Law Society elections, I had just had my panic attack like 2 weeks prior. And so I remember grappling with the decision as to whether I wanted to do it, because I was just like, what if this happens to me again? Like, what if I have another panic attack? Like, I don't want to be, the potential president and then not be able to handle it. Or I don't want to be, I don't want to be looked at and, basically confirm whatever people thought, which was, oh, she wouldn't make a good president and all this other stuff. And then I remember at one point I said, you know what the hell? Like, if I don't do it, what's the worst that's going to happen if I don't do it? Okay, sis had a panic attack on stage. It don't matter. Moving on my life. It doesn't matter. And I went and I submitted my candidacy. I became president. And I can tell you that was one of the highlights of law school for me in particular. And the programs that
go to her school, she killed it as president.
And so like, and I always think back to that moment because I remember feeling so much doubt and insecurity, like about doing it. And I think I even told Shanice, I was like, I don't know if I should do this or not or whatever. And she was just like, well, girl, what else you gonna do?
And just for the record, toxic masculinity and cheating won the first one, but it will never win in the end. And that's why Alexis was the rightful president.
Yes. Yes. And and all of those things are real things, like toxic masculinity, white privilege, all of those things contribute to imposter syndrome. And so we sit here today to share with you all that despite your self-doubt, despite what these outside voices might be saying to you about what you're capable of, what your worth is, you belong, okay? If you got here, nobody's gonna get in front of you as long as you're in front of yourself, period. That's just what it comes down to. You gotta stay committed to yourself and committed to what your end goal is. I can tell you.
And not only do you belong, but like you're going to exceed. Like from everything that sitting here listening to everyone speak, everyone literally has exceeded, you know, what a passerby law student's gonna do. And I think that's a big thing that we sometimes don't recognize for ourselves. Like I remember just a few weeks ago, me, Gabby and Alexis were like freaking out about grades, like, oh my God, I'm gonna fail all my classes with this whole COVID-19. And I can't tell you how stressed out I was.
Mind you, they all pass fail anyway.
You're all like pass fail. I'm not doing
it. We're gonna have to do pass fail, y'all. We're gonna have to do pass fail.
And we were literally like, this was this huge thing. We were like, no, like they like want to mess us up. And then bam, we get our grades. And it was one of my strongest semesters, like throughout my entire law school career. So it's just, like it's not only do you belong, but you end up exceeding when you really apply yourself and really just put in the work. And like, just like Bree said, she wrote this paper that to her, in her mind, it was like, oh, this is trash, but ended up being one of the best things a professor has ever read. Like you put yourself in that situation without even knowing. And that's like, it's so rewarding. It's such an amazing feeling.
And then also going off of that, what I've realized is that imposter syndrome, it motivates you in some odd way. Like, I don't know if it's like a good or bad thing, but you feel like you always have to put your best foot forward. So in doing that, like you always give everything your best intention. And sometimes that could be good. Like you could get exactly what you hope for at the end. And then sometimes it can be bad because you're stressing yourself out so much that it has to be perfect. It has to be this, but you have to take a step back and realize like, listen, whatever I do is going to be the best thing for me right now. And that's what I have to follow through with.
Okay. So I just want to thank everyone for being on this panel. You guys are like amazing. And I just felt it was so important to share your stories because literally I've like never met more amazing individuals. And so I'm really thankful that you guys took time out of your schedules. Just so everybody knows, 3 people on here are actually in the process of preparing for the bar. 3 of us will begin preparing for the bar as early as next week. So this meant a lot that anybody took time out of their schedule today to be able to talk about their experience and their journey during law school. So I thank you all for like being here for that. I just want to briefly answer some questions because I know we had a couple of questions in the chat. So I just want to briefly answer those. And then also I want to, if you guys have anything that you want to like plug, like I know Tanisha has a blog, but if anybody wants to plug anything else, like I would love to put your information so that people can contact you if they have any further questions beyond what they put on the chat. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going through. Okay, so there was a question about what do you wish you did prior to applying to law school to increase your chances of getting in outside of just taking the LSAT? Anybody can answer that question.
So I guess this isn't what I wish I had done, but it's something that I think helped me. Was I worked for a year after undergrad at a law firm, and I interned somewhere else too. I think as much job experience as you can get prior to law school really makes a big difference. I at least for me, it helped a lot because my LSAT score wasn't that great. My undergrad, I already told you I was not that great. So I think my experience kind of made up for all of that.
Yeah, I would have to add to that too. I definitely did not depend on my LSAT scores to get in, as you guys know. I did work at a law firm for almost 3 years, and I got a lot of experience. I was able to meet a lot of amazing lawyers there who ended up being great personal references. And while you're doing that, I think it's important to emphasize anything that that has to do with, public policy. If sometimes we do stuff without realizing what you're doing, how you're impacting the community. And it's just sometimes just having to actually recall and like put that in your personal statement. Your personal statement is you, like your application. You're trying to define yourself in this personal statement and make yourself sound like the brilliant person that you are. And even though you may not believe it at first, once you're writing it down, trust me, you're gonna be like, dang, I did all that. Like, it's really for me, the personal statement was like really eye-opening to everything I had done. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to, rely on your LSAT score.
And then I wanted to ask that, I don't know if there was anything that I would really do differently, but I know T and I, maybe a month or so before we started law school, we did a program through one of the law firms here that was geared toward preparing people of color to understand how to take notes in a law school class, how to brief cases, things like that. And I'm pretty sure Loyola and Tulane aren't the only law schools that have programs like that. So if, look into things like that, or if it doesn't even have to be through the particular school that you want to go to, there are law firms that are doing pro bono, they get pro bono hours for doing that. So just reach out to law firms in your city or anything like that and see if they have programs that help prepare undergrads that have potential going into law school.
Okay. So I think that was our only question at the time. But does anybody want to share, Tanisha, you want to share your blog so that people can visit?
Yes.
In the chat.
Oh, there were?
Yeah, we put them in the chat for you.
Sorry.
Let's see.
I think we talked about most of them in the conversations that we had.
Yeah.
I think one about how to score higher on the LSAT. And then we did talk about clinics and practicums, and
scoring high on the LSAT, I think that comes from prep, and so practice test is the key.
Yes, it is. I do want to plug my blog. I have realized, I was looking back on it, I have pretty much blogged about my entire experience. My website is www.tanishamanning.com. So even if you don't need to look for a specific blog, you can just go to my website. All of them are there. I give the way I talk here is the way I write in my blogs. I'm not afraid to share any part of my journey with you all. So that's helpful. I do want to leave you all with 2 pieces of advice. So 2 things that my mentor told me, she is now a lawyer, she graduated from Tulane Law, is that when you get into that classroom on that first day, y'all are all on the same page. I don't care whose mom or dad was a lawyer. We don't care who worked, even though some people worked at law firms beforehand, y'all are all on the same page because y'all never learned from that particular professor. And the professor grades the way the professor wants to grade. The professor tests and teaches the way the professor wants to teach. So just know when y'all are sitting there, even though you're going to feel uncomfortable sitting in that classroom looking around, everybody feels the same way, no matter how many times that young man raises his hand and answers a question. Second thing is, law school is your journey, meaning there are so many things you can do, from moot court to journals to clinic to practicums, what else? Different externships, different internships. There is so much, different organizations you can join. Alexis and them did sports law. I never even touched sports law. There are thousands of things you can do in law school. Do not feel comparison is the thief of joy. You do not have to compare your journey to anybody else's journey. Mine is unique. I'll tell you right now, I don't have a job yet. I have a job interview in the morning. And like, it's okay. Like, it's totally fine. So embrace your journey in law school. These ladies are so beautiful. We are all doing totally different things, but we embrace our journey. So that's my only piece of advice, but visit my website. My email is on there too, or you can email info@Tanisha Manning. And yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be making sure to put everybody's contact information in the chat so that way everybody can reach out to the different individuals that they want to ask further questions of. And so, like I said, thank you again to all of you ladies for being on this panel and sharing your experiences. Trust and believe this is going to have an effect on young women and men later on. And so I thank you guys for sharing your time and your words. So with that, I bid you all farewell. I hope you enjoy your Friday evening. Thank you. Bye, ladies.
Yes.
Bye.